Hello once again, everyone, and you didn't ask for it, but you're getting it anyway. Welcome back to another exciting episode of my very edgy, self-insert superhero novel that I wrote while I was in high school. I'm going to continue to live read a bit more of it, because it's really fun. Just for those of you who are first tuning in, this is the third part in this series, I suppose, so if you are unfamiliar, I will leave a card so that you can click on the first video to familiarize yourself with it. I'm just going to jump straight into it because I'm assuming that by part 3, everyone here should already be familiar with what's going on. At least I hope so. You should be up to date. Just a quick content warning. 15-year-old me was actually, wrote fairly violent things. So if you're a bit squeamish about blood and gore, you've been warned. That's all I got to say about that. Let's begin. I went up to the next floor. Like the previous floor, I couldn't find her. I went up to the next floor. It was blocked by a door that was too hot to touch. I kicked it open. I was greeted by a thick coat of smoke. I choked. I tried my hardest to force the air into my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I tried to crawl back downstairs, but I didn't want to let the lady and her child die. I couldn't tell if I was going backwards or forward. My vision was completely gone. I felt the fatigue in my muscles. My body wasn't able to give them the proper oxygen that they needed. I started feeling lightheaded. I was finally at a stage where I could barely move. Everything was getting darker and darker. I was going to end up like so many people that tried to do the same thing. I dragged my body. The pain was too much. I was about to give up when I felt a doorknob. It was very hot. With newfound energy, I got up and kicked the door open. I finally got a breath of air. I fell down for a second to let the oxygen restore my body. I called for the lady again. "Help me, please! My baby's going to die!" I searched the room. I found her lying on the ground next to a mutilated corpse. The corpse was missing its bottom half. The eyes were missing, and there were iron hooks inside its nostrils. The body was completely scratched up. Once she saw me, she got up and pulled out a knife. I kicked the knife out of her hand. She tried to punch me, but I caught her fist and broke her arm. I then put her in a headlock. "Who are you working for?" "If I tell you, I'll die. If you don't tell me, you end up like that body over there," I said while pointing to the mutilated body. "Kiss my—" I threw her to the ground. I then grabbed her hand and broke a finger. "Tell, or I'll break another one." "No!" She constantly refused. She wouldn't even tell when I broke her other arm. "Look, just tell me." "No!" Then I have no choice. I started dragging her towards the fire. "Wait, I'll talk!" "Who do you work for?" "I work for a guy who goes by the name of DNA Scenes." "Where can I find him?" "I don't know. He usually appears out of nowhere. That's all I know, I swear." "Good. Now you're under arrest." I brought her to the police. They thought I was crazy at first, but the lady reasoned with the cops. I checked the time. It was 4:30. Oh crap. I ran as fast as I could to the house. My parents came in the house literally 3 seconds after I changed back into normal clothes. "Hello," I said. "Hey, Miss J. Mix," my family said. My mom was wearing her usual military camouflage outfit. My dad was wearing a red shirt, a red and white striped tie, and black slacks. My sister was wearing black skinny jeans, a green and blue sweater, and a silver necklace. My dad sniffed the air. His expression changed from a happy one to a curious one. "Why does it smell like something's burning?" he asked. "Double crap! I forgot to spray myself with cologne." "Some kids were smoking near my bus stop," I said. "Oh, the smoke smells so fresh, though," he said. "There were a lot of them. I tried to get the scent off as best as I could, but I see it's going to take a while to return to my normal scent." Well, I was good enough. I'd believe it. But it's going to be hard to get my parents to believe it. They seemed to believe it, although they couldn't talk to me without looking at something else. It took me 3 days to return to my normal scent. I promised myself that I would let the police handle another burning building situation, unless it was during a barbecue. And that's the end of that chapter, so a few things to comment on here. So, obviously, yeah. So, one thing that I haven't really touched on about this thing So if you wonder why, like, I went into overly elaborate detail about certain settings or what people were wearing and stuff, it's because of one of my friends. So I actually, in the original version, ignored all those descriptions. But I had this friend who, I guess he was just like, well, I was going to make a joke about he was obsessed with, like, you know, like classic Victorian era literature when they go about 7 long paragraphs about the color of the interior decoration. What am I talking about? The color of the interior decoration. But no, he was just like overly into detail. So like he was like, you need to explain everything in detail. So that result was me saying, oh, this is exactly what this person looks like, which... You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that to an extent, but, like, obviously it kills the pacing and stuff. Now we're gonna get to DNA scenes. Alright, so we're about to get to a section where there's going to be a lot of Latvian involved here. Just so you know, all the Latvian that's in this is Google translated. It was Google translated because obviously I did not speak, well, I guess not so obviously, I didn't speak Latvian, so... There's going to be lots of Latvian. I'm not going to bother actually reading the Latvian because I don't know how to properly pronounce it, and also it's Google translated, just so you've been warned. DNA Scenes, so originally his name was Bloody Day, but I changed it to DNA Scenes, which is, according to, you know, 2010 Google Translate, is supposed to mean Bloody Day, but I could 100% be wrong. I'm actually kind of scared to show this, because, like, what if this means, like, blood as in, like... Okay, let's not go there. So... And then also, like, finally, like, I just really love the... It's going to be hard to get my parents to believe it, and then, boom, they seem to believe it. Just one of those things. But anyway, that's the end of that chapter. Let's go ahead and go over to my obvious Twilight ripoff section of the story. Like, you know, in case you couldn't tell, like, this whole story is a ripoff of a bunch of things, and now it's Twilight. You've been warned. Chapter 4, Ghost in the Graveyard. Finding DNA scenes turned out to be a pain in the butt. He kept on sending out all of his weakest subordinates to do his dirty work. I thought that I would never find him. All of that changed on Halloween. I can't believe Halloween's here already. It felt like I got my costumes just last week. A month passes by so fast. One of his subordinates said that DNA Scenes always goes to the Romeo Cemetery every Halloween. Since it was Halloween, I decided to turn into my werewolf form. I tapped my ring and selected the power. In an instant, my leg and arm muscles grew bigger. I grew hair over my body, and my mouth grew into a long muzzle. I grew so big that I ripped my clothes into shreds. I was amazed at how well I could hear and smell. I could hear all the talking from throughout my entire neighborhood, and I could smell all the candy. I ran into the forest. The speed I could run was extreme. I felt like I was running around 75 miles per hour. Even though I was going fast, I still had no training at maneuvering past all the branches and other obstacles. I ran into several trees, even though I busted right through them. It was still pretty painful. It took me about 10 minutes to get to the cemetery. The cemetery is blocked by a giant gate. On top of the gate was the name of the cemetery. Next to the gate were 2 gargoyles. I climbed over the gate with ease. The inside of the cemetery was very creepy. I could smell DNA Scenes. Because for some reason, I know what he smells like. He didn't smell human at all. I slowly walked across the cemetery. I was quickly halted by a very deep and demented voice. Going somewhere? I slowly turned around. I got a good look at the figure. It was average height for an adult. He had dull brown hair. He looked very pale and looked like he hadn't washed in years. He smelled like it too. He was wearing a white long-sleeve shirt and blue jeans. He also had glowing red eyes. His eyes were so red that not even the purest of blood could compare to it. He could sense my fear. That's strange. Most werewolves don't show any fear. They usually attack anything they think is unfriendly. They also never come alone. He had a very curious look on his face. He ran up to me in a flash. He started examining me. You have no clan marks, no battle scars, and the silver gate didn't scare you away. This is truly weird. Do you speak? Yes. My voice was very deep. It wasn't as aggressive as I thought a werewolf would sound, but it was certainly deep. You can even speak. You truly would make a good addition to my wall. I want your head. Oh, where are my manners? I should introduce myself before I kill you. My name is Obadiah C. Walker, although most people know me as Deanna Scenes. Kill me? No, I'll be killing you. I'll rip your heart and I'll keep it as a souvenir. I'll then rip your defenseless arms off. After that, I'll rip your tongue out and hang you with it. What am I saying? I didn't mean for that to come out, but I couldn't control my anger. After all, that loser had no right to say that. Marvelous. In half a second, he punched me in the chest. The punch knocked me 20 feet across the cemetery. He then dashed towards me and kicked me in the air. He jumped and punched me in my stomach. I hit the ground hard. I need to think. What would a werewolf do in this type of situation? Deanna Scenes dashed towards me and threw a punch at me, but I caught it and broke his arm. I was too slow to dodge his kick, and in another second I hit a tree. If I'm a werewolf, I have super strength, right? Maybe I can use this tree. I had no time to think of all the possibilities. He ran towards me, but I stopped him with a kick in the head. It startled him for a second. It gave me enough time to pick up the tree and smack him with it. Home run by MSJ Mix. He went about a mile away from where I was standing. I ran as fast as I could towards him. I jumped in the air and punched him in the stomach. I tried to punch him again, but he dodged it. He kicked me in the back. I went headfirst into another tree. My mouth got caught in the tree. I bit through it. I spit out the wood. There were a couple splinters in my mouth. Deanna Scenes punched me in the mouth. I scratched him in the stomach. It left a big wound in his stomach. He started bleeding clear blood. I jumped on top of him and started scratching him as much as I could. I was scratching so fast that my claws were making the sound of nails scratching against the chalkboard as I was scratching him. I picked up his healthy arm and broke it. I picked him up and threw him into a tree. He jumped up on his feet. You lose. I broke both of your arms. You really think that 2 mere fractures will stop me? His head did a 360 spin and popped off of the body. A black spear came out of the corpse. It solidified into a giant vulture-like monster. I'm quite impressed. Not many creatures take me to my second form. The form was even faster than his last form. I didn't have time to react to any of his moves. He smacked me with his wing and pecked at me. He tried to smack me with his other wing, but I managed to bite it out of pure instinct. He flapped me off of his wing. He grabbed me with his claws and flew up in the air. He dived down extremely fast, but let go of me and swooped up in the air before he crashed. At that point, I was covered in bruises. Although every single bruise healed in a matter of seconds, I got up feeling like I did when the fight first started. So I healed quickly. Of course. Why do you stupid werewolves have that stupid healing power? You're not tough enough to fight without it. You won't be saying that when that head of yours is in my stomach, I said. I was quickly knocked down by Deanna Scenes. He was about to finish me off when 2 figures in dark robes interfered. One had 2 sickles attached to chains with metal weights at the end, and the other had a giant scythe. The figure with the sickles threw one at Deanna Scenes. It wrapped around him. It pulled Deanna Scenes towards it and cut him with the other sickle. Deanna Scenes shook it off. The other figure took the scythe and sliced one of Deanna Scenes' wings off. The figure with the sickles kicked Deanna Scenes in the air and caught him by his neck with one of the sickles. It pulled Deanna Scenes to the ground and sliced Deanna Scenes' head off with the other blade. A black spear came out of Deanna Scenes' second form and solidified into his original form. Although this second seemed much more lively and healthy, he teleported away with a flash bright enough to blind a human. Who are you guys? I asked. They did not respond. Instead, they grabbed me by my arms and took me away. The figures, whatever they were very strong. I tried my hardest to break away, but they kept a firm grip. Eventually, they went down a flight of stairs that led to a dark area that resembled a medieval castle. The floor had a black and white checkered design, and the walls were made out of granite. The figures dragged me to a room with long hallway. There were other guys in black robes on either side of the room. Each of them were holding a special weapon in one hand and a candle in the other. At the end of the hallway was a throne with a very large figure in a black robe. Once the figures got close enough to the throne, they began to speak. To my surprise, one was a girl. That sounded like she was in her late teens. The other was a guy. That sounded like around the same age. Master, we have brought what you were looking for. Excellent. Could the being that fought Deanna Scenes be nothing more than a mere child? The master's voice was not that deep. He sounded like he was in his mid-teens. Wait, what am I doing here? Who are you people? "Silence, swine," replied the master. I broke free of the people's grasp. I charged at the master. I jumped in the air, but I was knocked down by one of the members. They all tackled me and put me in a bowing position towards the master. "You will know how to respect me, boy." "Just answer my damn question." "Silence," replied the mob of members. The master got up from his throne and gave me a kick in the face. Then he returned to his seat. "Well, since you're so anxious to know, we are the Order of the Dead. Each of us has sacrificed our lives to join the sacred order. We have been serving the dead and supernatural for thousands of years." "What do you want with me?" "Deanna Scenes is a rogue member of the group. We have been trying our hardest to destroy him, but every time I send one of my servants to defeat him, they're brutally slain. He has his own intentions to wield the dark arts and disrupt the balance between the supernatural and the human world. It is our duty to keep our society a secret. Thus, many of our spells that we practice have become banned from the order. We have assigned to you, as your honorable duty as a werewolf, to exterminate that vermin. First, we must test your skills. You will be taken to the outer limits of the graveyard. There is another rogue member of our group that lives there. Defeat him, and I will let you go. For now." "Okay, no problem. Take me to him." "Janice and Robert," the master called. The two people that took me in from before stepped up out of the crowd. "Yes, master?" "Go escort him to the outer limits. Keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't try to run away. If he does, kill him on the spot." "It will be done, our lord. Come with us, boy." They took me to the end of what seemed like an endless graveyard. "How big is this place?" I asked. "The graveyard has no limits during the night. All who enter are cursed to stay in here for the rest of the night." This is getting annoying. It was enough having to deal with an alien and human affairs, but now I have to deal with the mythical affairs too? "It is your honorary duty as a werewolf to protect our balance, even if your gift came from alien technology." "You know my secret?" "We are known as the eyes and the ears of all that is supernatural. We can hear your thoughts." Note to self, keep my thoughts kid-friendly. Would you stop thinking to yourself? It's getting quite annoying. At that point, Janice and I got into a long argument. We would have tore each other's face off if Robert had intervened. It was weird. If it wasn't for Robert cooling us down, I would have never thought he was there. I was still confused on the weapons he was wielding. "Robert, what are your weapons called?" "They are called kusarigama. They are an ancient weapon that were used by ninjas," Robert said. He spoke in a very authentic British accent. Which, first of all, why did it take me this long to specify this? And also, Janice does not have his accent, so... Interesting. Do you guys steal your weapons from enemies? No. When we were babies, we were sat in a room filled with thousands of weapons. Whichever one we picked became our weapon of choice throughout the rest of our existence. They sat you in front of thousands of weapons as a baby? Yes, a lot of cultists do that. Besides, there were people watching us in case we hurt ourselves. One more question. Why? Oh, will you shut up? It's annoying enough having to escort you to the outer limits. I don't want to be bothered by your questions, Janice said. I'm sorry that I'm reading her voice like that, but that was 1000% how 15-year-old me intended her to be read, so sorry. Must you be such an... Say that word and that breath will be your last. Just like that, Janice and I got into another argument. After about an hour of traveling, we finally got to the outer limits. The man you're looking for is in that castle over there, Janice said while pointing to a giant blood-red castle. Remember, we are only here to see if you're up to the challenge of defeating Deanna Scenes. We're not here to be your babysitter, so don't screw up and die. I had a puzzled look on my face. What my sister is trying to say is to be careful, Robert said. Oh, will you shut up, Robert? I have no concerns for this person. For a second, Janice had her head down. She was probably blushing. Janice and Robert disappeared into the darkness. Well, looks like I'm on my own now. My throat felt like it had a big lump in it, although I quickly shook it off. I didn't understand. I've dealt with tons of villains, but for some reason, I felt like I was on my first mission as a superhero. I started running across the area on all fours. I could hear the moaning of creatures around me. It gave me the creeps. The moaning wasn't the only thing that was annoying. The stench of the dead people flared my nostrils, and I thought the smell of dead people in the inner limits was bad. I was certain that even in my assassin form I would run away screaming, but there was something about this power that even though I was scared stiff, that gave me the courage to move on. At about the halfway mark, I could see the guards. They were skeletons with giant swords and shields. They also had a Viking hat on them. I felt a gush of wind past me. Normally I would have thought that it was a random burst of wind, but it felt alive. Whatever that means. It was probably Robert or Janice checking up on me. "Halt! All who trespass the court of Lord Gretel shall be punished." 2 of the guards stabbed at me. I knocked one's head off and ripped the other's arm off. The headless guard's body simply got up and reattached his head. I crushed the other guard's arms into a sandy powder. I get it. The only way I can defeat a guard is if I turn the bones into powder. Otherwise, they'll simply reattach the missing body part. The guard swung at me. I kicked him in the ribs. I took his head off and crushed it. That was easy. I started running again. I had a few more encounters like that. As I got closer and closer to the castle, the enemies got tougher and tougher. They went from being skeletons with swords to evil magicians, to even vampires. In every battle I learned a new skill. When I first entered the graveyard, I was a cowardly werewolf who had never had a magical fight in my life. Mystical fight. Now I'm a confident werewolf. Of course, compared to Lord Gretel and the members of the Order of the Dead, I have no skill. I felt relieved to enter the castle. It seemed like an average skyscraper from far away, but close up it was even huger. The building seemed like it was as tall as 5 Eiffel Towers stacked on top of each other. I wondered how we could possibly miss such a thing during the daytime, or even during the night for that matter, but the doors themselves were nearly 100 feet tall. I had a feeling that if I wasn't a werewolf, I wouldn't be able to open them. It felt like they were 200 pounds, even with my super strength. The castle was a very rich gray. It seemed completely red from far away, but close up, I could tell that the red came from all the bloodstains that was on the walls. I wondered how many people before me had tried to enter the building before they were brutally slain right there. The inside of the castle was very dark. The floor had a red and black checkered pattern. There were several stone columns inside. On top of the columns were metal gargoyles. There were several torches on the walls. Each torch had a message written in a weird language under it. The hallways were filled with invisible spirits. They were moaning and saying words in what I assumed was a language written under the lanterns. They spoke in a very chilling whisper. One spirit turned from invisible to a bright white. "I warn thee to go back," it said. "I will not go back. I will defeat Lord Gretel." "Thou wilt not win. He will destroy thee." "No, he shall not. I will defeat him." "Thou hast so much courage. It will all be in vain. Thou must listen to me. This is my final warning. Thou must be brave. Farewell." The spirit disappeared. I walked into the first room. The room was mostly empty. There was a set of medieval knight's armor in the middle. There were several unlit torches on the wall. The door shut behind me when I walked into the middle of the room. Each torch was lit with a blue flame. The outer edges disappeared, leaving a giant circle in the middle. The armor came to life. A blue and white shield and sword appeared in its hand. The armor charged at me. I dodged it and knocked it to the ground. It got up and threw its sword at me. I dodged it. The sword reappeared in its hand. It stabbed me in a non-vital part. I ripped one of its arms off and pulled the sword out. My wound healed. I jumped in the air and pulled the sword out of his hand. I broke it in half. The sword burst into blue flames. The armor fell down. The edges of the room appeared. A door appeared on the opposite side of the room. I walked through it. It led to Lord Gretel's throne room. It was made out of a very fine marble. There was a row of windows on the really long hallway leading to the throne. Across from the windows were mirrors. It was made to look like you were looking outside through both walls. There were several pews on the mirror side of the hallway. At the end of the room was the throne. There's a giant throne and 2 smaller thrones on either side of the giant throne. The thrones are decorated in gold and very fine jewelry. Lord Gretel was sitting in the giant throne. He had straight black hair. His skin was very pale. He had a very bored expression on his face, as if all he did during the day was sit in the throne. He had white eyes with no pupils. He was wearing gold armor. "I fought millions of monsters and have enough experience to last 200 human lives, and yet they sent a boy to fight me. This is just insulting. After I'm done killing and torturing you, I'm going to make sure I kill the master of that wretched organization." "You won't be able to kill me if your organs are everywhere," I replied. "How cute." I think I might save your carcass for my wall. Lord Gretel took a deep breath. In half a second, he was in front of me. He threw a punch at me, but I blocked it. I tried to counter it, but he grabbed my arm and threw me into a wall. He jumped on top of me and started punching me. I kicked him off of me and threw him into the ceiling. While he was dropping to the ground, I kicked him into his throne. My wounds healed themselves. I started running towards him to smash his head into the marble seat. He kicked me in the face. I kicked him in the side. I picked him up. He flipped me and pinned me to the ground. I kicked him off of me. I scratched him across his nose. His clear blood ran down his face. I clawed him in the stomach. I was starting to fight like a werewolf. I went from a still stance to a somewhat dancing stance. I jumped over him and scratched his head. I kicked him in the back, sending him to the wall. I pulled him off the wall and threw him into another wall. I jumped over to him and grabbed his head. I then threw him to the ground and pinned him. This was it. I was about to finish him off. I bent my arm back, ready to make the final blow. And with that, I suppose we shall call it here for this exciting episode of Knock Off Twilight. So yeah, we'll go ahead and go into our kind of like meta commentary phase section of this segment here. So, I mean, there's the obvious influence here. So Outer Edge is disappearing, having to fight armor. I was clearly taking inspiration from Ocarina of Time / Majora's Mask. And yes, I say Ocarina. I could never stand when people said Ocarina. It's just one of those things. Like Legend of Zelda. Like that's obviously what this is. Yeah, so I don't know why Janice has an American accent and Robert has an English accent. I don't know why it took me like several pages in to even explain that he had an accent to begin with. I'm not even going to go over the fact that like I obviously like what's with this ninja stuff? Like, I don't know. I just did it because I thought it was cool. Yeah, I mean, this is actually a whole section that I thought would be kind of interesting. Like, because I mentioned, was it in the previous one or was it in part 1? I mentioned that, like, about 3 years ago, I went back after reading this and tried, like, redoing this, but making it less self-inserty. I made it about 7 pages into it before kind of just stopping. But, like, I kind of focused on this whole section here with, like, what do you call it? Like, supernatural section. I thought that, to me, that was the most interesting part of the story, and I kind of focused more on that, kind of got rid of the alien technology. I might read those 7 pages at some point, I don't know. Let's see, where am I going? Oh yeah, Deanna scenes. Okay, so I wanted to point this out just so that you guys don't point it out, because it's really obvious. Where is it? Going somewhere, blah, 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 blah. Come on. Where are you? I'm quite impressed not many creatures have taken me to second... Yes, that's Dragon Ball Z. I get it. I know. I ripped off of everything. Like, I'm pretty sure that, like, Janice's scythe was because of the manga Soul Eater. I think. Possibly. I don't know. Just don't get mad at me, guys. I wrote this, like, 13 years ago. Well, I mean, if you get mad at me, you get mad at me. It's whatever. Like, it's I'm having fun. Maybe you guys are having fun. Maybe you're not. You're just watching out of morbid curiosity, but it doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and just move on to, like, the more modern stuff. This is where I kind of, like, drop. I don't have Merc, but what I'm doing. So, yeah, once again, I am MHJ Makes. I currently have a online screenplay series that I'm writing called the Nobunaga Universe, which takes place in a alternate universe, kind of diesel punk vigilante, diesel punk Japan. The main character is a vigilante, like superhero type thing. It's very interesting. I'll leave the link to my episodes in the description so you can go ahead and read them if you so desire. I guarantee you that they are better than this. Or maybe they're about the same, but because I made them slightly more grammatically correct, it feels better. But aside from that, if you're curious about like who I am or whatnot, I'll be sure to like leave a card here, which you can click on, so that you can see just what the Nobunaga series is about and how I came about starting my current rendition of it. Without further ado, I'll see you guys later. See ya!